Hey everyone, and welcome. We're doing a deep dive today into studio living in Hong Kong, and wow, it's been an eye-opener, even for me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always thought Hong Kong was all about those super high-rises and tiny
Right.
apartments. But I've been digging into these articles you sent over about studio specifically, and I'm really impressed with how people are making these small spaces not just livable, but really stylish and functional.
It is amazing what they can do with limited space in Hong Kong.
For sure. Like, did you know that some of these studio flats have sofa beds that practically disappear into the wall?
Yes, space-saving furniture is a huge industry in Hong Kong. They've taken it to a whole new level.
That's so cool. So our mission today is to really break down studio life in Hong Kong, from the different neighborhoods to the design hacks, even looking at what the future holds for this trend. What do you say? Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's get started.
Awesome. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about why studio flats are so popular in Hong Kong. Is it just about affordability, or are there other factors at play?
Well, affordability is a big one for sure. Property prices in Hong Kong are some of the highest in the world, so studios often become that entry point for people who want to experience living in this vibrant city.
Makes sense. You get to be in the heart of it all without breaking the bank.
Exactly. But it's not just about the money. Studios also appeal to people who are drawn to a more minimalist lifestyle.
Oh, yeah, that less is more philosophy.
Exactly. They want to own less stuff, prioritize experiences, and live in a space that's easy to manage.
I can see the appeal in that, especially in a city like Hong Kong that's always on the go.
And then there's the location factor. Studio flats often pop up in the coolest, most central neighborhoods, so you're right in the mix of all the action.
So it's not just about the space itself, but about what that space gives you access to.
Precisely. You can step out your door and have amazing restaurants, shops, cultural attractions, all right there.
I bet that's a huge draw for people who are new to the city or want to experience everything Hong Kong has to offer.
Absolutely. It's about being immersed in the energy of Hong Kong.
Okay, so we've talked about the why. Now let's talk about the what. What are some of the key features that define a Hong Kong studio flat?
Well, one of the first things you'll notice is the open plan layout. Everything is in one space, which can be a challenge, but also an opportunity for creative design.
Right, and from the articles I saw, they really are getting creative, like using those high ceilings to create a sense of spaciousness, even with limited square footage.
Exactly. And big windows in another common feature, to
Mhm.
bring in as much natural light as possible.
That makes sense, especially when you're living in a compact space. Light can make a big difference in how open and airy a room feels.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the whole world of space-saving furniture. That's where Hong Kong studios really shine.
Okay, spill the tea. What are some of the coolest space-saving solutions you've seen?
Well, we already mentioned those sofa beds that magically transform into the wall, but it goes way beyond that. You've got tables that fold down, desks that double as bookshelves, beds with built-in storage underneath. It's incredible how much they can pack into one piece of furniture.
That's amazing. It sounds like they've turned maximizing space into an art form.
They really have. It's all about efficiency and making every square inch count.
So it's not just about making it work, it's about making it work well.
Exactly. And it's not just about function either. There's a real emphasis on style and design in these studios. They're not just cramped little boxes. They're often beautifully decorated and thoughtfully curated.
Right. I noticed that a lot of the studios in those articles incorporated those traditional Hong Kong design elements, like the calligraphy scrolls and antique ceramics, alongside modern furniture. It created this really cool blend of old and new.
Yes, that's a very Hong Kong aesthetic, blending those traditional touches with contemporary design.
It's like bringing a bit of the city's history and culture into your living space.
Precisely. It gives it that unique character.
So we've got the why and the what down. Now, let's talk about the where. What are some of the hot neighborhoods for studio living in Hong Kong, and what makes them so appealing?
Well, there are a ton of options depending on the vibe you're looking for. One area that's really popular right now is Saying Pun.
Saying Pen, yeah. That one kept popping up in the articles. What's the draw there?
It's got this great mix of old and new. You've got those traditional shops and markets, but also trendy cafes and bars popping up everywhere.
So it's got that authentic Hong Kong feel, but with a modern twist.
Exactly. And it's super walkable with great public transport links, so it's easy to get around the city.
Sounds perfect for someone who wants to be in the heart of it all. What about Kennedy Town? I saw that one mentioned a few times as well.
Kennedy Town is a bit more laid back. It's on the western side of Hong Kong Island, right by the water, so you get amazing sea views.
Oh, that's nice. A little escape from the city buzz.
Exactly. It's become a popular spot for expats and young professionals who want a more relaxed vibe, but still be close enough to the action.
So it's all about finding that balance. What about Saikung? That one seemed totally different.
Ugh, Saigon. That's a whole other world. It's actually a bit further out, more like a coastal town, with beaches and hiking trails.
Wow, so you can actually get away from the concrete jungle in Hong Kong.
Oh yeah. Saigon is all about nature and a slower pace of life. It's a popular weekend getaway for city dwellers, but some people actually live there full-time.
That's so cool. I'm picturing waking up to the sound of the ocean instead of traffic.
Exactly. It's definitely a trade-off, though. The commute into the city can be a bit longer.
Right, but I guess it depends on your priorities. If you value peace and quiet and being close to nature, it might be worth the extra travel time.
Absolutely. It's all about what you're looking for in your Hong Kong experience.
Okay, so we've got these amazing neighborhoods, these cool studio flats, but let's be real for a second. How much does it actually cost to rent a studio in Hong Kong?
Well, that's the million-dollar question,
Oh,
isn't it?
literally, maybe.
Probably. It really varies depending on the location, the size, the amenities, all those factors.
Yeah.
But to give you a ballpark, you could be looking at anywhere from 8,000 HKD per month for a basic studio in the new territories to upwards of 20,000 HKD or more for a high-end studio in a prime location like Central.
Wow, that's quite a range.
Yeah, Hong Kong's rental market is definitely on the higher end.
Yeah.
But, there are ways to find deals and make it work.
Okay, let's talk strategy then. What are some tips for navigating the rental market in Hong Kong and maybe scoring a great studio without going broke?
Well, first off, it's super helpful to work with a real estate agent who specializes in studio rentals.
Makes sense. They know the ins and outs of the market.
Exactly. They can help you find hidden gems, negotiate with landlords, and just generally make the whole process smoother.
So, any tips on finding a good agent?
Don't be afraid to ask for references. Look for someone who has experience specifically with studio flats, and make sure you feel comfortable communicating with them. It's a partnership.
Right, it's a big decision, so you want someone you trust.
Absolutely. And don't forget about those e-services platforms for public rental housing.
Oh, yeah, those were mentioned in the articles. What's the deal with those?
It's a government-run system that offers more affordable housing options. There are often long waiting lists, but it's definitely worth looking into if you're on a tighter budget.
So, it's a bit of a gamble, but potentially a big payoff.
Exactly. And whether you go the private or public route, it's crucial to understand all the costs involved beyond just the monthly rent. Things like utilities, management fees, deposits, all that good stuff.
Right. It's easy to get caught off guard by those extra expenses.
For sure. And don't be afraid to negotiate. Hong Kong's rental market is competitive, but a good agent can help you get the best possible deal.
So knowledge is power when it comes to renting in Hong Kong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The more prepared you are, the better your chances of finding that perfect studio oasis.
Okay, so we've covered the why, the what, the where, and even the how much. Now, let's get to the fun part, the design process. How are people transforming these compact spaces into stylish and livable homes? What are some of the design trends and hacks that really caught your eye in those articles?
Oh, there are so many clever ideas out there. Let's dive into the world of Hong Kong studio design and uncover the secrets to maximizing both style and function.
I am so ready for this. All right, so we've talked about the nuts and bolts of finding a studio in Hong Kong, but let's be honest, the real fun starts when you get to, make it your own, right?
Absolutely. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah. So what are some of the cool design trends you're seeing in these Hong Kong studios? How are people really maximizing their space, but also making it look good?
Well, one thing that really stands out is this emphasis on light and airy color palettes.
Oh, okay, so lots of whites, creams, pastels, that kind of thing.
Exactly. It's all about creating a sense of spaciousness, which is key when you're working with limited square footage.
It's like tricking the eye into thinking the space is bigger than it is.
Exactly. And mirrors can also play a big role in that.
Oh, yeah, mirrors. I bet those are strategically placed, huh?
Oh, absolutely. A well-placed mirror can reflect light and create the illusion of depth.
Smart. And I bet those large windows we talked about earlier play a role too, right? Bringing in all that natural light must be huge.
Oh, natural light is a game changer, especially in Hong Kong, where you often have these incredible city views.
Right. You don't want to block those out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A lot of the studios I've seen really emphasize keeping those window areas clear, using sheer curtains or blinds that let the light stream in.
So it's not just about artificial lighting, but making the most of that natural light.
Absolutely. It makes a huge difference in how the space feels.
Okay, so light is key. What about incorporating natural elements into the design itself? I saw a lot of plants and wood accents in the articles you sent.
Yeah, bringing the outdoors in is definitely a trend in Hong Kong studio design.
It makes sense. It's like a little bit of nature in the middle of the concrete jungle.
Exactly. And it adds warmth and texture to the space, which can make it feel more inviting.
So, like plants, wooden furniture, bamboo, things like that.
Yeah, all of that. It's about creating a connection to nature, even in a small urban space.
I love that. It's
Love
like
it.
a little oasis.
Exactly. And speaking of technology, we can't forget about the role of smart home features in these modern studios.
Oh, right. We touched on that earlier, but I'm curious to dive a bit deeper.
Yeah.
How are people using technology to enhance their studio living experience?
Well, imagine being able to control your lighting, temperature, even your appliances, all through voice commands or a smartphone app.
Oh, wow. That's next level.
It's becoming increasingly common in Hong Kong studios. And it makes sense, right? When you have limited space, you don't want to clutter it up with bulky control panels or switches.
Right. So it's about streamlining and integrating everything.
Exactly. Plus, a lot of these smart home systems are designed with energy efficiency in mind, which is great for the environment and your wallet.
So it's win-win. Okay, so we've talked about design trends and tech, but let's get down to some practical tips. What are some of the things people are doing to really maximize space and functionality in their studios?
Well, one of the most important things is decluttering regularly.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Less stuff, less clutter.
Exactly. When you have limited space, you have to be more mindful about what you bring in.
Right.
And it's not just about getting rid of things, it's about being organized and having a place for everything.
Right, so it's about having a system.
Absolutely. And then, of course, there's the classic tip. Utilize vertical space.
Oh, that's a good one. Like using shelves and wall-mounted storage units.
Exactly. Think up, not out. You can install shelves, use wall-mounted storage units, even hang plants or artwork to maximize those vertical surfaces.
It's like thinking three-dimensionally.
Exactly. Get creative and find ways to store things without cluttering up your limited floor space.
What about furniture arrangement? Any tips for maximizing flow and functionality in a studio?
Yeah, this one's important. Don't be afraid to experiment with different layouts. See what works best for you.
Okay, so like move things around until it feels right.
Exactly. You might find that a strategically placed rug or room divider can help define separate areas within the studio, creating distinct zones for sleeping, working, and relaxing.
Oh, I like that. So even though it's one open space, you can create a sense of separation.
Exactly. And don't forget about the power of personalization. This is your space, so make it feel like home.
Right. Make it reflect your personality.
Exactly. Surround yourself with things you love. Add those personal touches that make you happy. Photos, artwork, plants, books, whatever brings you joy.
So I've talked about design, maximizing space, creating a cozy vibe. But what about the social aspect of studio living? Do people feel isolated, or is there a sense of community within these buildings?
That's a great question. You might think that living in a studio would be isolating, but actually, a lot of studio complexes in Hong Kong are actively fostering a sense of community among their residents.
Oh, really? That's interesting. How are they doing that?
Well, many buildings have shared amenities like gyms, co-working spaces, communal kitchens.
Oh, okay. So places where people can naturally bump into each other.
Exactly. These spaces provide opportunities for interaction, whether it's striking up a conversation at the gym or sharing a meal in the communal kitchen.
It's like having a built-in social network right there in your building.
Exactly. And some complexes even organize social events or activities for their residents, like movie nights or cooking classes. It's a great way to meet your neighbors, especially if you're new to the city.
It's almost like a dorm experience for adults. I can see how that would be really appealing to people who are new to Hong Kong or maybe living on their own for the first time.
Absolutely. It's about creating a sense of belonging, which can be so important in a city as fast-paced and sometimes overwhelming as Hong Kong.
Right. It's like having a built-in support system.
Exactly. It's about more than just the physical space. It's about the community that surrounds it.
So we've covered so much. Design trends, space-saving tips, creating that cozy vibe, and even the social dynamics of studio living. What other insights can you share about this whole experience? What else stood out to you from the articles as being particularly unique or unexpected?
Well, one thing that really impressed me was the emphasis on sustainability.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
A lot of the newer studio developments are incorporating eco-friendly features into their designs.
Okay, so like what kind of features are we talking about?
Things like energy-efficient appliances, water-saving fixtures, and the use of sustainable materials in construction and furnishings.
So it's not just about maximizing space, but also minimizing the environmental impact.
Exactly. And it seems like this focus on sustainability is driven by both developers and residents. People are becoming more conscious of their carbon footprint, and they want to live in spaces that reflect their values.
Right. It's about making conscious choices.
Absolutely. And it's great to see that sustainability is becoming such a priority in the Hong Kong studio market.
Okay, so we've talked about how studio living can be a great option for minimalists, but what other types of people are drawn to this lifestyle?
Well, it's definitely popular among young professionals, especially those who are new to the city and maybe don't need a ton of space.
Right, they're probably more focused on being out and about, exploring the city.
Exactly. And we're also seeing more and more digital nomads and freelancers who are drawn to the flexibility and mobility of studio living.
Makes sense. They can work from anywhere.
Exactly. And then, of course, there are those who simply prefer to live in the heart of the action, surrounded by all the energy and vibrancy that Hong Kong has to offer.
Right, they want to be in the thick of it.
Exactly. It's all about prioritizing experiences over possessions, living a more compact and efficient life.
It sounds like studio living in Hong Kong is much more than just a housing trend. It's really a reflection of the city itself, wouldn't you say?
I completely agree. It's adaptable, resourceful, and constantly evolving, just like Hong Kong.
I love that. Okay, so we've explored design trends, lifestyle choices, and even the social dynamics of studio living. But what about the future? Where do you see this trend heading in Hong Kong?
Well, one thing's for sure, the demand for studio slats is only going to increase.
Right, especially with property prices being what they are.
Exactly. So I think we're going to see even more innovative designs and creative solutions for maximizing space and functionality in these compact homes.
Like, what kind of things are you imagining?
Well, for starters, I think we'll see more integration of smart home technology. Imagine studios that are completely voice activated, where you can control everything from the lighting to the temperature with just your voice.
Oh, wow, that's futuristic.
And I think we'll see even more multifunctional furniture, pieces that can transform into multiple different things to adapt to the needs of the resident.
That's so cool. So it's about making the most of every inch.
Exactly.
Mm.
And I also think we'll see more emphasis on sustainability, with studios that are designed to minimize their environmental impact.
Right, using those eco-friendly materials and energy-efficient appliances.
Exactly. And on the social side, I think we'll see even more emphasis on building community within these studio complexes.
So more shared amenities and social events, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Creating spaces where people can connect and feel like they belong.
It's like creating those micro neighborhoods within the larger city.
Exactly. And we're already seeing this trend with the rise of co-living spaces in Hong Kong.
Right. The articles you sent mentioned Weave Studios and Nathan Residences as examples. What makes those stand out?
Well, Weave Studios is known for its exceptional communal spaces that cater to both work and leisure. They have co-working areas, a gym, a rooftop garden, and they organize regular social events for residents.
It sounds like they've really thought about the whole lifestyle, not just the living space.
Exactly. And Nathan Residences has a similar focus on community and shared experiences. They have communal kitchens, dining areas, and even a library where residents can relax and connect.
It's interesting how these co-living spaces are blurring the lines between private and communal living.
It's like a hybrid model that offers the best of both worlds. And I think it's a model that we'll see more of in the future as urban populations grow and the demand for affordable and flexible housing options increases.
It's all about adapting to the changing needs of city dwellers.
Exactly. And creating spaces that foster both individuality and connection.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about. I'm starting to see studio living in a whole new light. It's not just about downsizing, it's about right-sizing.
That's a great way to put it. It's about finding a space that aligns with your values, your lifestyle, and your budget.
Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground here, from design trends and lifestyle choices to the social dynamics of studio living, and even what the future holds. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier, choosing the right neighborhood.
Oh, absolutely. Location is crucial, especially when you're talking about studio living.
Right, it can really impact your whole experience. So let's revisit some of the areas we talked about before, like Sai Ying Pun, Kennedy Town, and Sai Kung, and dig a little deeper into what makes each one unique.
Let's do it. Starting with Sai Ying Pun. As we mentioned, it's got this great mix of old and new. You've got those traditional shops and markets, but also trendy cafes and bars popping up everywhere. It's super walkable, and has great public transportation.
So you can get that authentic Hong Kong experience, but with all the modern conveniences.
Exactly.
And then there's Kennedy Town, which is a bit more laid back and residential. It's right on the waterfront, so you get those amazing sea views.
And it's a bit quieter than Pun, which can be a nice change of pace.
Right, if you're looking for a bit more tranquility.
Exactly. And then there's Sai Kung, which is a whole other world.
That's the one that really intrigues me. Tell me more about what it's like to live there.
Well, imagine waking up to the sound of the ocean every morning, being surrounded by nature, and living in a community that values a slower pace of life.
That sounds idyllic. But is it realistic to live in Sai Kung and still be connected to the city?
It's definitely doable, but the commute can be a bit longer. It all depends on your priorities and how important it is for you to be close to the action.
Right, so it's all about finding that sweet spot between your ideal lifestyle and the practicalities of living in Hong Kong.
Absolutely. And luckily, Hong Kong offers such a diverse range of neighborhoods that there's truly something for everyone.
Well, you've given us so much to think about. It's amazing how much depth there is to this whole concept of studio living in Hong Kong. It's not just about the space, it's about the lifestyle, the community, the city itself.
I couldn't agree more. It's a fascinating microcosm of urban life in the 21st century.
And there's still so much more to explore. We'll continue our journey in the next part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Wow, after looking into all these Hong Kong studios, what really strikes me is how much personality they pack into these small spaces.
It's true. It's not just about fitting a bed and a table. It's about creating a home that reflects you. Yeah, and I love how they use design to enhance that feeling of spaciousness, even with limited square footage. We talked about those light color palettes earlier.
Right, whites, creams.
Yeah.
They make a space feel so much more open and airy.
Exactly. And not just that, but it brings a sense of calm, too, like a little bit of zen amidst the Hong Kong hustle.
Definitely. And then you add those natural elements like plants and wood, and it becomes a little oasis right in the middle of the city.
Yeah, I remember seeing this one studio in the articles that had this incredible vertical garden. It was like a green wall.
I love that. It's like bringing the outdoors inside.
It really is. And it's not just about the design elements. It's about the personal touches, too. The things that make a studio feel like home.
Absolutely. Photos, artwork, books, those little things that tell your story.
Right. And speaking of books, I remember one studio that had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. It was like a mini library.
That's amazing. It's those kinds of touches that make a studio truly unique.
Exactly. But let's be real, keeping a studio clutter-free can be a challenge, right? Especially when you have less space to hide things away.
It definitely requires a more mindful approach. You have to
Yeah.
be really intentional about what you bring into your space and what you choose to keep.
Yeah, I imagine it forces you to be more organized and to regularly declutter.
Absolutely. It's about embracing that less is more philosophy.
And that seems to really resonate with the Hong Kong lifestyle, doesn't it? Like making the most of what you have, being efficient with space.
Exactly. It's a city that thrives on resourcefulness and innovation.
Right. We talked about all those clever space-saving solutions in Hong Kong studios. It's amazing what they can do with limited square footage.
It's true. They've turned maximizing space into an art form.
You know, it makes me think that studio living isn't about deprivation, it's about adaptation. It's about finding those creative solutions and embracing a more streamlined lifestyle.
I love that. It's about challenging the traditional notions of what a home should be and creating a space that works for you.
And that's what I find so fascinating about this whole concept. It's not just about the physical space itself. It's about the mindset, the lifestyle, the sense of community that comes with it. It really reflects Hong Kong's adaptable and ever-evolving spirit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And as we look to the future, I think that spirit will continue to drive the evolution of studio living in Hong Kong.
Absolutely. There's so much potential for innovation and creativity in this market.
Definitely. And I think we'll see even more emphasis on sustainability, community building, and technology integration in the years to come. It's an exciting time to be following this trend.
I'm feeling so inspired to rethink my own living space now. Maybe I need to embrace some of those minimalist principles and space-saving solutions.
Well, it's been a pleasure diving deep into this topic with you, and a huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this journey.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of Hong Kong studio living with us.
Remember, it's not about the square footage, it's about how you make it your own.
Until next time, happy exploring.